From safari adventures and travel updates to conservation and humanitarian stories, this is Africa Revealed, bringing you the heart and soul of East Africa. Now, here's your host, Dr. Matt Jensen.
Hey everybody, welcome back. By the way, I love that intro accent. Makes me sound pretty exciting. But hey, it's Dr. Matt Jensen. Once again, welcome back to Africa Revealed. I'm excited that you're joining us, and I hope that you're starting to get excited about what lies ahead as we take you on your journey and your preparation to Africa. You know, this is only our second episode, but we chose a heck of a time to start this podcast because as people are considering and thinking about going to Africa, one of the biggest things on their mind is what? Ebola. How is that affecting travel? Should it affect your plans to travel? What if you're already booked and you're ready and you're worried? Well, we're going to answer some of those questions today and try to give you reliable information to help you decide what's best for you. Now, I'm just going to give a disclaimer. So I want to be very clear and upfront. The only person that should determine if it's a right time for you to go to Africa is you. We encourage everybody, all of our listeners, all of our travelers to do your research, do your due diligence. Set some of those emotions aside, not all of them, because emotions is part of life, but sometimes our emotions can get the best of us. And I've seen it with a lot of clients where emotions make things completely unreasonable. But I've also seen the opposite, where determined self-will ignores warning emotions, and you can go too far swayed to the other side. So really when it comes to Ebola, but this is just one factor. There's also political factor. There's a lot of things to consider when you're going to Africa. And you always need to do your due diligence, do your research, and we hope that we will help to be part of your solution when you decide when and if you should travel to South Africa. Now, again, another part of the disclaimer is I'm awfully biased. I do encourage you to visit Africa. There are so many incredible adventures to be had. I actually just got back from a 2.5 week. I'm in Africa at least every quarter. I do things for our humanitarian work. I vet lodges and camps. I visit national parks. I create a lot of content and video because I want to be up close and in the middle of everything going on so that we can be one of your trusted resources when you come to Africa. And so I hope that this episode will bring you a little bit more peace of mind in helping and aiding your decision to go to East Africa. So let's jump right into it. First and foremost, let's talk about Ebola. Now, I am not an infectious diseases expert. That's a big caveat here, but I am a dentist. So I do have a little bit of knowledge about transmissible diseases and what's happening on the healthcare front. So here's what we know about Ebola. First of all, Ebola has been around since the 1990s. There's been 17 outbreaks of Ebola, mainly in Central Africa. And almost all of them have been different strains. Now, what's different about this strain is it's never been seen before, and it's very deadly. That's right. We shouldn't shy away from talking about it, right? This Ebola strain, it starts with a B. I'm not going to try to pronounce it, but it's a different strain. It's very deadly. The current or early information is that it is taking the lives of 1 in every about 3 people. Now, we don't know what the end product is going to be, but the early reports is that it's a pretty dangerous virus. Now, on the other side of this is the other important thing to know is how it is transmitted from person to person. First of all, and I want everybody to understand this, this is not COVID. It is not an airborne disease or virus. It is not spread through airborne droplets. So in other words, you cannot get Ebola simply by sitting in the same airspace as somebody, sitting in a safari lodge, or being on a game drive. You're not going to get it that way. This requires, and again, I'm not saying anything that is not reported by WHO or CDC. You can fact check me all you want, but it has to be transmitted from bodily fluid to bodily fluid, blood, semen, other things like this. Okay, so it's kind of difficult to get it when you are not involved in some type of bodily fluid exchange. In other words, who are the most likely people to get Ebola? Based on reports, even caregivers, care workers, if they're not properly wearing those barriers of protection, rubber gloves, masks, if somebody has open wounds and the vomit or the blood or the semen somehow gets into your system, you're not going to get it. Now, I'm sorry, I should have given a little bit of a disclaimer that, because I'm a healthcare worker, I'm not going to try to focus on some of those details of transmission, but that's the truth. That's the way it's getting transmitted. That's the way it's being passed from one person to another. Furthermore, here's another truth that everybody needs to realize. Kenya and Tanzania, and many times Uganda, but let's focus on Kenya, Tanzania, because that's where most of the safari, yes, there's South Africa, Botswana, and these other countries, but right now the worry is Kenya and Tanzania, because that's where the majority of people go on the safaris. And when they look at a map of Africa, they see that Democratic Republic of Congo, and we're going to say DRC from now on, that it looks awful close to Kenya and Tanzania. Well, the thing is that over the last 17 transmissions, these countries have learned how to have effective barriers to entry of that virus and of that disease. And so if you go research, again, I invite you to fact check me now. There's little exceptions to everything. But if you look at World Health Organization, if you look at Centers for Disease Control, again, I'm an American, so these are organizations that we routinely check. There has not been widespread transmission in Kenya or Tanzania. Even the great outbreak, 2014, that was the worst, biggest outbreak. Kenya and Tanzania were still far away from those areas of outbreak. And because of how it's transmitted, it doesn't spread by airborne disease like COVID, which took over the entire planet for a year or two. It's just not transmits that easily to Kenya and Tanzania. Now, the media is having a heyday with this, and in some ways they should, because as I mentioned in the beginning, we should never ignore the deadly nature of this virus with people who come into contact with it. But I see all these headlines saying that Ebola is raging in Central Africa and it is spreading like wildfire. Okay, it's not raging through Africa. It's absolutely false. It is raging in the communities where it's already existing. The provinces in DRC is where it's raging. Even Uganda. Now, Uganda, I'm going to tell you, even the president of the country came out, as well as some of their healthcare workers, to push back a little bit, because as recently we know that U.S. Department of State has issued a level 4 travel advisory, which is the big red do not travel. But did you know that the CDC also puts out its own travel advisories? Now, it only has 3 levels, not 4, like the Department of State. But here's the thing. The Department of State doesn't issue level 4 simply because of Ebola. No, the Department of State issues their travel advisories based on many factors. They base it on political factors, social factors, and healthcare factors, and any other factor that they're seeing from their intelligence that poses some degree of risk to foreign travelers. Well, Uganda was already at a level 3. Did you know that? That's because there has been some political violence, even terrorist violence, near the borders, but again, away from most safari places. Ebola just caused them to go from the level 3 to the level 4 because Ebola plus other factors played a role in their decision to raise the threat level. But the CDC, the U.S. Centers for Disease Control, who are only focused on disease, only went from level 1 to level 2. In fact, you'll find quotes from the World Health Organization that they are encouraging travelers to not abandon their plans to travel to Uganda. Why would World Health Organization say this if they're the ones that they're saying that Ebola is a threat of international significance, or however they worded it? It's because they understand the transmission patterns. They know that if you're in Bwindi Impenetrable National Forest doing a gorilla trek, you're still far away. There's people from the Ituri province in DRC don't have a one-way ticket to Bwindi Impenetrable National Forest. And for them to even get to Entebbe International Airport, for them to even get to Kampala of the capital city, there's already barriers and screenings that are taking place. So there are so many levels of protection to the traveler for the safari. So again, I'm not trying to taint this as it's safe, go to Africa, go have your safari. I'm trying to give you the facts. I'm trying to take some emotion out of it. I'm not saying you should ignore emotion, but what's happening is people are ignoring the facts and 100% being focused on their emotions. I'm trying to bring you the facts. I was just in Kenya and Tanzania. People aren't talking about Ebola. They're talking about the amazing elephant herd that they saw yesterday on their game drive in Amboseli National Park. Or they're talking about the 2 male lions that were hanging out 20 feet away from their safari vehicle, because there's not only is there no Ebola in Kenya and Tanzania, there's no Ebola in the national parks, right? Kenya and Tanzania have learned that tourism is one of their cash cows, right? If not the cash cow. So they are absolutely interested in protecting that, because their economy would nearly fall apart without tourism. So over the last 30 years and 17 outbreaks, they learn and they continue to exhibit more and more robust measures to protect tourism, okay? So I talked about Kenya and Tanzania. I've even talked about Uganda, which has that level 4 Department of State and only level 2 from the Centers for Disease Control. So again, any decision to travel to any area in Africa should take every consideration, and not just Ebola, right? There can be violence in any large city. It is a third world country. It is developing. There are different things that you need to take into consideration, but don't ignore the talks about malaria and making sure you get your anti-malaria medication when you go. Tapestry of Africa, our safari companies, never had a client come down with malaria. Your yellow fever vaccination, you got to have that to go into Tanzania, and it's highly recommended for other countries. We'll get into vaccinations and travel health on those aspects of health on other episodes. But there's other things that you need to be concerned about as well. Don't put everything out the door and only focus on Ebola. Yes, you should think about Ebola, and yes, you should make the best decisions for you. We had a big family recently coming to Tanzania, and they decided to cancel because they produced two doctor's letters that the heart condition and the health concerns of one of the elderly members was such that it just wasn't worth it, right? It's just not worth it. I mean, nothing is guaranteed 100% in life, right? Let's admit that. I'm not here to tell you that you are 100% guaranteed to not get Ebola if you come to Kenya and Tanzania. But I am very confident in telling you that we're probably 95 to 99% chance of being free. And I'll tell you what, if somebody offered me a 95% on a paper in college, knowing I could get higher, I'd take the 95%. I'd bank on that all day long. However, we have to look at our own personal situation like this other family did. And they made the decision along from the recommendations of their doctors that, why risk even being in the same continent? And so that's great. That's fine. I have another couple, an elderly couple that is scheduled to go gorilla trekking here in the next few weeks in Uganda. They came to me and they said, Dr. Matt, we don't think we're going to get Ebola. We want to go to Uganda. And I had to say, listen, I'm not here to make your decision for you, but I am here to be a trusted resource. At your age, and the wife had some medical conditions. I said, at your age, I think you'd be 95 to 99% fine going to Uganda and going your gorilla trekking. I think you'd be fine with that. But at your age with the medical condition, is 4% or 5% enough wiggle room for you to want to go? Not to mention you sent me an email from your doctor stating that he recommends you go somewhere else. So I'm the one that had to talk him away. I said, you know what? There's too many other great things for you to see in Africa. And as the founder of your tour operator, if you want my opinion, let's get you to a few more extra areas in Kenya. And that's what we did. Now, to other people that are coming to Uganda in the next few months, and we have several signed up. Again, we're here to support you 100%. Just do your homework and get the facts. If you're uncomfortable even a little bit after you've done your homework, then why risk it? Why put yourself through that stress? You see, when you come on your safari, even if you've convinced yourself from all of the facts and science that's out there, are you still going to be worried and concerned every person that you come in contact with? Why put yourself in that position when you're on safari? Safari is supposed to be a great escape from your daily worries and world. So if you're not able to separate those emotions, those worries, then why risk it? Not why risk it, why even think about it? There's too many other areas in Africa that you can enjoy and that you can experience. Now, obviously, there's some cancellation policies and non-refundable things that financial things, I should say, that you have to take into consideration. But we're here to help you wade through all that. We'll always advocate for you if you're coming. Again, this is not a podcast just for Tapestry of Africa clients, but we're here to help. I don't care if you're going with another safari company. You can hit me up, send me a message, send me an email. I love helping people from all walks of life. I don't care if you're going Tapestry of Africa or somebody else. I'm here to help be a trusted resource for you. So I'm also here from you. And if you want us to help you with your travels, great. We'd love to. I will tell you, I will put a plug in that I don't think anybody is better hosts in East Africa than Tapestry of Africa. Go read our reviews. Okay, there's the plug for today. But again, Ebola, just to wrap things up today, and I'm going to put some resources down in our show notes, okay, from WHO, Centers for Disease Control, so that you can know that these are trusted sources that we vet, that we read. By the way, we're constantly in contact with our on-the-ground people over there so that we know that we can provide you with the most up-to-date information. So should Ebola prevent you from going on your safari? The answer is no, it should not. But does that mean that that's the right answer for you? We're here to support you. We're here to give you information. We're here to give you trusted resources so that you can be confident in your decision when you come to East Africa. Thanks for joining and hanging out with us today. We here at Africa Revealed are passionate about all things Africa travel and Africa humanitarian efforts. They just go hand in hand, and that's what we've done, is to help our safari travel support our humanitarian efforts at the Dental Outreach Relief Foundation. Thanks for joining us today. We hope that this has been a valuable resource for you as you continue to weigh the options of traveling to Africa on your safari in light of the Ebola outbreak in Central Africa. Thanks for joining us, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening to Africa Revealed. Join us again next week as we uncover more of the wildlife, wonder, and stories that make Africa unforgettable. Until then, adventure awaits.